Can you imagine how frustrating Detective Justice's childhood must have been? When I grow up, I'm gonna be a doctor, a lawyer, or a scientist. Everybody else, with a name like that, you're gonna be a cop or a vigilante. Now, which is it, son?
Do you believe in the supernatural?
I might.
Well, I had this dream.
What a kind of dream?
There was a beautiful woman. A woman with a smile so lovely it could brighten the darkest night. But she was trapped. She was trapped in a prison where the moon never shined. She couldn't escape because she didn't know how. And then I came and I set her free.
Did you?
The woman was you, Rita. I recognize you.
Well, how did you set me free?
I set you free with a dance.
Wasted talent is a common complaint when it comes to Eddie Murphy's filmography. How can someone so overflowing with skill and charisma choose such poor projects? I can't argue that latter-day Eddie vehicles like Meet Dave and Holy Man, not to mention infamous efforts like Norbit and Pluto Nash, aren't horrendous. But he doesn't get nearly enough credit for at least attempting to branch out and reinvent himself instead of recycling the same old Rick Baker-assisted, wacky, profane characters. Boomerang was his stab at romantic comedy. The Underrated Distinguished Gentleman, an attempt at a socially conscious satire. Then there's Vampire in Brooklyn, which I must have watched often in my youth, considering how much of it I'd retained on this rewatch. Snagging a genuine horror icon like Wes Craven was an obvious sign that Murphy and his co-writer brothers wanted something much darker and harder than their audience was used to. But the resultant film, whether due to Murphy's get-it-over-with attitude and/or studio cold feet, is an uncomfortable mix of comedy and horror that's never uninvolving, but far from a riotous or ghoulishly fun time.
So the wolf you saw looks something like that right there.
What, the wolf?
The wolf.
Hell no, that didn't look like that's a true wild compared to the motherfucker come at me. You must be crazy. You seen the wolf man?
Yeah.
To the 25th power.
John Witherspoon had one speed as an actor, but nobody could ramble on about nonsense like him. Eddie Murphy was my childhood, and his magnetism makes him an ideal villain. As Witherspoon's Motormouth puts it,
Some suave motherfucker, new tenant. He's been tapping that top shelf booty. I'm talking about bang, 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 bang.
his seduction of Angela Bassett, whose screen persona has always exuded a strength and which complements her co-star's megawatt stardom, is a highlight of a film which dawdles from set piece to set piece because it doesn't have a strong enough base upon which to set its Brooklyn-bound narrative about a lone vampire searching for the last of his kind. That in itself sounds like a solid movie, but the film never clarifies what'll happen if he's unable to turn Bassett to the dark side, let alone the fact that he does find and even bewitch her, but the film seems more eager to futz about with loony side characters than get to the meat of the matter. Here, mostly Italian mobsters. Unnecessary narration smacks of studio mandates, animal deaths must be handled very carefully to be funny, and the pacing feels awkward and always in second gear. Still, there's an inherent fascination in the quest of Murphy's long-haired vamp Maximilian, and some elements do stand out. Brooklyn's midsection where Max attempts to turn Bassett's Rita is surprisingly effective, and Bassett plays her character's tortured psyche very well. Had these sequences arrived sooner, it might have made for a richer narrative. Murphy's grab bag of powers, particularly his ability to transform into other people complete with clothing and inner thoughts, is a dubious vampiric conceit. But his explanation about being a master vampire and anyone he mimics needing a doorway of evil is stronger than it should be. Still, he literally uses the word spells, so witchcraft does rear its head, and it's never made clear if perhaps Caribbean voodoo or something else might be going on. Let's face it, they probably just thought it would be cool if he could pull off some of these tricks. As a decrepit Renfield stand-in ghoul, Kadeem Hardison gets the lion's share of one-liners.
You thought you was gonna get some ass tonight, didn't you? You take your ass to Blockbuster, get a video. Pizza place. Ain't no pizza place around here, you lying motherfucker.
It doesn't make much sense that he'd begin falling apart so quickly. It seems he'd need his limbs to be Murphy's eyes in the day, but at least he and Witherspoon get to banter. Zakes Mackay is always welcome, and the idea that some linguistic scholar standing in for Van Helsing would also have a happening club might have been played for laughs, but it's just window dressing, and the quietest club ever, by the way. You're telling me there wouldn't be a stampede when that cobra got out? Craven's direction isn't lazy, and he does inject some much-needed pizzazz, particularly during the more supernatural sequences. He was always an intelligent filmmaker, and the screenplay isn't without some wit, particularly during what's probably a heavily improvised, but nevertheless mesmerizing preacher sequence about necessary evil, with Eddie in one of his customary makeup disguises. Less funny is his low-level mob scumbag Guido. Had the story shrugged off Bassett's partner and focused on the central couple and her struggles with good and evil, the dramatic and dark vision Murphy likely wanted might have been achieved. For what it is, Vampire in Brooklyn has a lot to offer, but it's missing the joy one gets from the best comedy and horror films. Thanks for watching, you jive turkeys. Plenty more scary stuff coming up, so like and subscribe and have a happy Halloween.